Our roll call indicates all of our trustees are present. And we welcome our members of the audience today. We have a few people joining us, and that's always a good thing. We don't have any recognitions, correct, Anthony?
No recognitions.
Angie? Okay. So that takes us to public comment, and we have, and I'm going to do this wrong, but I'm going to try, Kaviljam?
Hello, everybody. My name is Kıvılcım Noit. First of all, I want to thank the SBCC Board of Trustees who are allowing me to speak on behalf of SBCC's out-of-state and international students. I would like to think of myself as a dedicated student and a good community member. As well as being a full-time student and working part-time, I actively participate in clubs and volunteer outside of the school. As a fact of matter, I know I am not the only international student who does this. For instance, big portion of student ambassadors are international, and they do so many things to help this community. Today, I'm here to express my feelings and concerns about the optimal college size and efficiency policy. The language that has been used in the new policy caught our attention and made us contemplate. Many questions popped up in our minds due to this contemplation, and not being able to answer those questions caused us to become more apprehension about this new policy. For instance, what does the optimal college size mean? Will this new policy lead to a cap? It is clear that there is a potential cut for the amount of students who will be accepted to SBCC, but do you guys have a specific number? What portion of this cut will be made, especially for international and out-of-state students? How will the localizing affect the rest of the student body? Will there be a geographical discrimination when accepting students? It is crucial that SBCC understands that our experiences here are considered one of the greatest, if not the best, due to the diversity in the community. SBCC helps us gain a better cultural knowledge and educates individuals to become more interconnected. By lowering the amount of international and out-of-state students, SBCC will take this great experience away from their students. SBCC student body believes in equal chance of education, and we all hope that we are just worried for nothing. Although our worries won't go away until we get our answers. When we left our homes and moved to SBCC, we adopted this place as our home and community, and nothing would hurt us more than SBCC treating us like outsiders. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next item is approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of September 14th. Can I have a motion to approve? Greg, Veronica, you want a second? Okay. Comments, changes, questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Minutes are adopted. We have human resources consent items, and Angie, do you have any problem with taking those two together? Do you think that's fine? I would think so, yeah. Anyone have any problem with taking two together? All right. It's only two. 5.1, permanent personnel, and 5.2, experts and volunteers. Oh, David, sorry.
Yeah, just in regards to Kay's comment, I was wondering if we could move to 7.2. I don't know if you guys have time or anything to stay for the whole meeting, but just to be considerate to our students here. Yeah.
I think we need to keep it in order, but thank you. It won't take all that long.
Okay.
So may I have a motion to approve 5.1 and 5.2? Jonathan? And Peter, second? Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, those two are done. Revisions to the Santa Barbara City College Equal Employment Opportunity Plan, the EEO plan. Are we going to have some presentation on that?
Yeah, we have Dr. Mona Lisa Hassan here to explain what she's doing with this, and it's basically some updates and revisions.
Good evening, board members and members of the audience. Thank you for having me tonight to present just a little bit. I won't take up too much of your time. The Board of Trustees adopted this plan in April of 2017, so it's fairly new. It is a 3-year plan, so but it is a living document as well. As we see that there are needed changes, then we can come back and make some revisions. When I came on board, I realized that some of the language in the EO plan was from old Title V language, and because I had served as the peer reviewer for the state, I sort of, some things sort of stood out, and I wanted to make sure that we were aligned with Title V. So what you'll see here on this document up here are just the first 9 pages of the EO plan that was adopted in April, and all I did was align it with Title V current language. And the things that we were looking for is to make sure that we had an updated definition of diversity, that we had specific topics of training for the EEO Advisory Committee, and that we were no longer indicating goals or targets, because that's not a part of the Title V regulations as they sit now. So you'll see the strikeouts and then the bold information on here. So it's pretty self-explanatory, but it does require board approval. And so you'll see the first change on page 5. And there, where the business necessity, that's not current language any longer in the Title V regulation, so that was stricken. We made a few minor changes to number 1. I'm sorry, I skipped that on adverse impact, and just to align that with Title V. The definition of diversity was from the old Title V as well, so we updated that to ensure that that's updated. So just a slight change on number 5 there, with striking some things and adding the language there that's in bold. So it's pretty self-explanatory there. The one thing that changed on 5 was that when we're reporting our data now, we're bound to, and it's a good thing, to report it by categories, because oftentimes we look at our data in its purest sense. So we could sort of claim that we have 30% Hispanic, let's just say that. But if they're all in the service areas, then that may not be a good thing for the college. We need to move those numbers through and hopefully move them from service to higher level positions. So you'll see that data in November when I present the numbers for last year. Some more definitions were changed here. So on ethnic minorities, that was old language, so it's now ethnic group identification. So forth. So I don't want to go through each one because they're really just aligning it with Title V unless you have any questions on any of these. There was another change on number 9 on, let's see, on page 10 here. The advisory committee, what was missing from this language here is that we are required to train our EEO advisory committee in these areas. So you'll see the addition there in the center. Areas 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, where there's specific training that we have to go through. And I'm very proud of our EEO Advisory Committee. We've met once already since I arrived, and we have our next meeting on Monday. And we have a student joining us on Monday as well, since they were not involved in the first meeting. And so we are a full team and looking forward to developing some ideas, professional development, in cultural proficiency, cultural competency, and just rolling out a series of workshops that will continue throughout the year, because we always say this discussion cannot be a one-shot thing, and needs to be an ongoing discussion about what we can do, what strategies can we have in place to ensure that we work on diversity in the workplace, but also, more importantly, that we have the understanding of our population that we serve. So I don't have any more for you tonight. Thank you for having me, unless you have any questions.
Any questions? Marty?
Yeah, I looked this over and couldn't see that there were any real substantive changes. So is that correct? Because you said that we're aligning it with the new Title V, but I didn't see any real substantive changes. You added a few things, but nothing substantive.
Nothing real, just the alignment with Title V and ensuring that there are some definitions that put us back in almost like affirmative action language, which we
Yeah.
don't want to have in there. So
Yeah, no, understood. So, okay, thank you. Thanks for all this work, too.
Yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate the different aspects that you highlighted in terms, these things are always tricky, and Craig always brings them up. We approve them because they're under our purview, but we don't actually get into doing anything with it. So I think that a lot of the things that you highlighted are appreciative because they definitely align with a lot of our goals and what we're looking to do with our student populations and our larger community. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the revisions to the EO plan? Peter, second. Mary Ann? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That brings us to item 7.1, revisions to Board Policy 2340 agendas and Board Policy 2410, Board Policies and Administrative Procedures. And let me just double check because we do have some people who want to comment, but I don't think it's this one. No? Do we? 7.1. 7.1? Angie, do you? Oh. It's all right, I can't. Kim.
Is it under?
It was there. Angie confirms it was there. If I lost it, I apologize.
Honorable members of the Board of Trustees, President Croninger, Dr. Beebe, I would like to share the Faculty Association input on BP 2410. You are setting a pretty ambitious goal for processing board policies. 60 days for BPAP to review and for governance groups to provide input to come back to the board. Well, usually I'm all for ambitious. Ambitious is good. That's what I always tell my students. But maybe in this case, we need a couple of additional days. And please allow me to explain why. Many of our board policies affect working conditions. Basically, half of the Chapter 7 policies, and a bunch of Chapter 3 policies as well. The ERA, the Educational Employment Relations Act, requires that any regulations that involve working conditions have to be negotiated with a collective bargaining agent. For the SBC faculty, this bargaining agent is the Faculty Association. Well, we all know that things work a little differently at Santa Barbara City College. Codified in Article 13 of the contract between the district and the Faculty Association, we established a very unique relationship between the association and the Academic Senate. At SBCC, the Academic Senate is authorized to discuss and agree with you on a number of normally negotiable items. However, also in Article 13, it is established that the Faculty Association has still to be consulted on any of these matters, and such consultation needs to be taken seriously. That means the FA needs to be given enough time to gather information, discuss the matter, and give feedback to the Academic Senate. It appears that this is not all doable in 60 days. Just for an example, one of the policies that will be discussed in the next agenda topic today, specifically BP 3150, only came from BPAP to the Academic Senate on September 27. No way that the FA can have meaningful input on this discussion in such a short amount of time. But I will talk more about this specific policy when we get to 7.2, and you should have another slip from me. So, in conclusion, my request for you is today that you please consider to make an addition to BP 2410, that additional time is provided for any matters that require Faculty Association consultation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cornelia, wait. Jonathan has a question.
Yes.
What is an appropriate length of time? 60 is too little, what's too, what's?
60, it very much depends how fast the items come come down from BPAP. Once we have them, I think 3 to 4 weeks would be an okay amount of time for us to discuss. You know, if you bring it in the middle of the summer, maybe then we need a little bit more, but 3 to 4 weeks, that would be fine.
Why does it have to come from BPAP? I mean, the process that I was envisioning was that when the board discusses it and says, this is a good idea, we should go forward, then it goes out, right there.
Well, it goes out.
And it's been on the board agenda, so it's available.
It is my understanding what I saw as a process, which was presented to, at the Academic Senate, that it first goes to BPAP. I hope I get that right. From the chapter leads, it goes to BPAP, and then from BPAP, it goes to Academic Senate and other governance groups, and once it's at the Academic Senate level, that is when the FA gets consulted. So we had this whole flow chart. I'm not sure.
No, the flow
Was that
chart is the old way when we were doing the complete legal review
Okay.
of all of the policies, but that flow chart applied to that. Now we're in a different
Then I
era.
think, you know, what we then would need to discuss it, at what time it comes to the Academic Senate and to the Faculty Association.
Well, that's what I was
If
suggesting.
if that is no longer the flow chart, which
Yeah.
I must admit
I'm-
is new to me.
I'm just suggesting that the idea was that once the board has put it on the agenda, publicly discussed it, decided it should be put out for participatory comments, that's the day one.
Okay.
So if you need 3 to 4 weeks after that, you're well within 60 days.
No, I thought
Yeah.
60 days plus, you know,
Yeah.
because especially if you look at 3150, which only came to the Academic Senate at the last meeting on September 27, and that's when the Faculty Association basically started. And I'm not sure if we should discuss that then.
Yeah, we
At
can
the
do that
next
with
agenda
3150,
topic.
but that's not the schedule I have, so whatever, we'll get to it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So I sit on Academic Senate as well, and what we were presented with was the flow chart. So I'm a little bit confused now in terms of how, do we have another chart in terms of how?
I believe Kenley and Anthony were working on the process for going forward in doing that, which would comport with these the general approach laid out in this policy. I mean, you weren't here when we went through this, but we had a set of board regulations that were not on the website, not available to everyone, including the board, and had not been updated for a very long time. So we spent 3.5 years going through an update process for everything in the board policy section. And that was largely based on what the league recommends, the California Community College League recommends. It was a big project, but it was a one-time catch-up project. And so that elaborate system reflected that catch-up, basically, I think. I mean, I hadn't seen that chart. It certainly looks Byzantine, but the process was intended to bring us up to date, and we are up to date now, and we have much better systems in place to move forward that way. So now we're moving to a simpler process, because clearly there's some board organizational things that really don't need that level of review at all. And then there are other things that may need the usual level of review, so. Anybody else? Jonathan?
I have 2 comments. So
Yeah.
the way I see this playing out in my mind is, like you said, day one is the day we talk about it at the board, and then the students and the faculty and the staff, it's public information. So once they know that it's on the agenda and that we've said, yes, we're interested in moving forward, then it just goes on the agenda, the next relevant meeting for each group. And then at some point in that 60-day window, the reps from each of those groups go to BPAP and say, yeah, our group likes it, yeah, our group doesn't like it. BPAP votes, gives a recommendation, and then we vote on it. I think very simple to me. One thing I would be okay with putting in is within 60 days, maybe put something like the board can extend that in a special circumstance, like if it is the summer and we don't think we can get it done, like in a very, under certain circumstances, we can extend it. But I think the 60 days is a pretty long time, and it does give people time to meet. If this one particular instance seems like, I'm not sure what happened, because that's not, my role, but these policies were up on the website on our agenda for months, not even August 24th was the first time we got the final versions, but these have been up February, April?
We first,
yeah. So
February
it's
and
been a long
April,
time.
And then, again, and they were on the Academic Senate, 1300 and 3150 were item 5.2 on the agenda of the Academic Senate in July 12th.
Yeah.
So there has been a real chunk of time, and BPAP asked for a couple of extensions, and we said, okay, which is why it's taken this long to get back here.
Yeah, I just think it's important to put a day limit on when BPAP has to give a recommendation, because this faculty diversity policy took literally 8 months. And that's, to me, not okay. So I think 60 days needs to be at least, it's a goal to hit.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm ready to move approval, because I know we didn't do that.
Okay?
I'm ready to move approval.
Second?
Second.
Jonathan? Other comments? Okay, you didn't, I checked the slips, you were on the next two, right? Okay. So,
No,
We're not adding
I
language.
moved to just do it as is. I mean, I think that, Dr. Beebe, should you see that something, I think that the relationship is that you would come to us, and with all our policies, we can always revisit them. I think this is not the first policy where we wanted to add or change, and we say, oh, let's just revisit when we revisit, and that's okay.
Yeah, my only comment would be along the lines of what Jonathan was talking about in terms of maybe a friendly amendment to the idea of adding special circumstances of some kind that might arise, whether it's summer, or whatever it may be. I mean, it's hard to describe. Instead of just having the set 60 days with no flexibility.
well, I think we have inherent flexibility anyway. I mean, we can say 60 days, and we can agree to waive the 60 days in any particular case. I mean, we have taken that approach with pretty much all board policies, that we have the option to waive in a particular situation, unless it's against a statute, which this wouldn't be.
So let the record show we have ultimate flexibility.
Not ultimate, but
I'm happy we can submit an amendment later, but I think it's important we pass it today. And wordsmithing right now, I don't think we can do.
Okay.
Greg, did you have a comment? Were you waving for a comment, or were you?
Yeah, I don't know, I have what we're gonna vote on here is to,
Just
like,
what's there.
just what's there,
Right.
not changing any of the verbiage.
No.
And I like what you said about the flexibility, I mean, that's inherent, and we're not unreasonable here. So I don't see a need for the change.
Okay. So we have motion and second. We have had comments, so unless there are more comments, all in favor of adopting 2340 and 2410? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we've got those.
Policy and policies.
Go, Jonathan.
Policy on policies.
Go, Jonathan.
Okay, that brings us to 3150, and that will be followed by 1300 as separate items. We have requests for public comment at these items, and I just wanted to preliminarily say that we as a board should be in listening mode. We are receiving people's comments, and we, above all, we're not in a debate. We are in a situation where we want to hear those comments, understand what is being said, and model the kind of civil discussion that we expect from everyone in the college, consistent with our vision. So I would like to call the people to make comments, and we'll have ample time afterward to discuss. Okay? Priscilla?
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Beebe. I wanted to make clear today that I'm speaking in my role as Academic Senate President. And my comments are relevant to both of the next two items, 7.2 and 7.3, BP 1300 and BP 3150. And first, I wanted to express appreciation for the updated version of BP 1300. For those of us who had worked on this document and been in dialogue about changes to it, we recognize that that contributed to a great improvement in the document. And I want to express gratitude around that and also be clear that my comments today are not about whether that document is good or not, but rather on the process for considering that. And then separately, I want to address some of the concerns around BP 3150. So there are two major process issues that we wanted to focus on. And the first one is in the BP 2410, which the board just voted to approve. It says that when any new or substantively changed policy is being proposed, it should first be discussed at a regular board meeting, and then if a generally agreed upon worthy of further discussion, shared with BPAP and so on. You've all read that very carefully. BP 1300 and 3150 were publicly discussed at the August 24th board meeting. And at that meeting, Dr. Beebe requested that the policies both be considered as having undergone the initial discussion. So as I understand 2410, the initial discussion and then first reading and then the approval stage is a three-step process. Yet at today's board meeting, the agenda reference has a quote about first reading and discussion occurred on August 24th, which collapses the two-step process. And while the concepts for these policies may have been previously discussed at board retreats or other venues, retreats are not videotaped, do not have the same level of public visibility as a regular board meeting. And to be consistent with the board's policy, these policies would be considered for first reading today, as I understand BP 2410, with possible consideration for approval at a future board meeting. Secondly, the approval process also seems to suggest that when a significant change occurs to a policy, that should start the process again. So BP 1300 in its current version is dramatically different from BP 1300 in the version that was seen on August 24th, and from that perspective is a significant change, which, as I understand it, would require it to go through a review process again. And so to be clear, the substantive changes seem to warrant an additional round of review also by our governance groups. And in fact, the Academic Senate has not seen the version which is being considered by the board today. I would also like to express some concerns around BP 3150, optimal college size and efficiency. Originally, when the Academic Senate and BPAP were reviewing this policy, we were very focused on the language and talking about what size is appropriate. Should this word be here? Is this an appropriate efficiency target? Because that was the language for us to consider. As we stepped back from that a little bit, we have concerns and started to recognize that the language itself does not seem appropriate to board policy. The Community College League of California's trustee handbook states that policies should clearly state the intent and direction of the board, but not be overly prescriptive or detailed. They should allow employees to exercise the professional discretion for which they were hired. And I know that I've heard that type of statement repeatedly from board members at various points. I know that Dr. Beebe in his presentation on the Carver model of policy has represented that the board provides overall goals but does not define how to achieve those goals. And BP 3150 seems to be dictating that. BP 3150 contains very prescriptive language, including a precise designation of size and a particular FTS target. And the faculty do not consider that giving numerical targets for such operational components of the college fits within a broad, high-level policy. And further, at least one component of BP 3150, the FTS target, is clearly geared toward addressing our budget challenges, yet existing board policy already provides clear direction about that, including BP 6225, Principles of Budget Development, and BP 6200, Budget Preparations and Multi-Year Fiscal Projections. I would like to explain a little bit about how we see the kinds of issues that are in the current version of BP 3150 as being relevant for us, since we perceive those to be the how of resolving some budget and other issues. We think that those elements would be more rightfully in the educational master plan. And each year the college does its annual review of the educational master plan. And that seems the appropriate place for the how to achieve a goal should exist. So in summary, we're asking for two things. The first is that neither BP 1300 nor BP 3150 be voted on for approval today. And the second is that BP 3150 be removed from further consideration. Instead, the content of that proposed policy should be considered by the college as it does its annual update of the educational master plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla. Kim Monda is our next speaker. No, we can't hear you that way.
I didn't know you could sign up twice. This woman knows how to rock these things. I got one shot, so I'm going to try to do it in 5 minutes. All right. Good evening. It's nice to see all of you. I had a lot of great moments of reporting about the work of the Senate, and welcome Dr. Beebe in this new role. I would rather be home grading papers, but, and I'll also say it's not nice to see you in this context. I feel terrible. I woke up early and couldn't sleep thinking about speaking to all of you today. I'm speaking in my role as a former Senate president and a leader on this campus where people come and talk to me when they're concerned. And we're in one of those moments, and I'm getting emotional now because I love this college, and I give my life to this college. I sacrifice for my family. So we talk about it. It's okay. I know you knew that too, Veronica. We make these sacrifices for this place that we love. And what is happening with these policies is we are feeling that participatory governance and really understanding what your people here care about is not happening right now. And it is really, really painful. Our core principle talks about participatory governance. You heard some details about process, and they're better at that. What was supposed to happen when? I don't know. I know that these board policies are like our laws. These are what we live by as an institution. Those are published across the state, across the country. We have a national reputation. These policies will be looked at for people probably around the world. And right now, these policies contain things that I not only don't see as models, but see as violation of a lot of our principles, of our mission, and of our vision. And so, I have more to see if you just ignore your notes. And I'm going to take a moment to pull that. I got freaked out about the 5 minutes. So I want you to hear this crisis, and it's not just me. I take this really seriously. It was an honor to serve the faculty, and I really learned to listen and not always put my opinions first, which took me a little while. But I really learned that, and I haven't stopped learning that. So I've heard from a lot of different people. We have new administrators. They're wonderful men, but they don't know our culture. They are learning it. And these two policies push through choices and descriptions and attitudes towards things that the rest of the community has not been able to weigh in on. And we don't fully even understand what they will feel like. That one young woman, I came in late because I was chairing another meeting, talking about that looks like we're not invited. A student on AP who just joined us pointed out, people are going to wonder, can I still apply here? Local access and service is at the heart of everything that we do. But sometimes that includes welcoming people from outside the area and outside the country, because that's how we have a better college for the local people here. It's complicated. And as Priscilla spoke beautifully, as our president who can put it into this, that frameworks are never as easy for me to fully grasp, but I understand why in a policy, because we're in a fiscal crisis, we're facing a lot of decline in enrollment and we need to make some changes. So I respect your role to set that policy, but I too feel shocked by the specific numbers, because there's so much that goes in to the programs we offer and the sizes of our classes and the people who are here that you don't understand and that you shouldn't. That isn't your role. That's in the weeds. All right, the last thing I wanted to come to you about 1300, and I really hope you don't approve these today. I hope you hear me and recognize there's a lot of people behind me and behind Priscilla and other speakers and that you don't. But I don't know what you're going to do, because I got 5 minutes of public comment to try to tell you stuff after I saw this late Monday night, where I'm still grading papers and planning classes and cooking for my family. So if you approve this now, I need to take a minute to tell you something about the language if you're going to approve it. And Jonathan, I think it is sometimes important to wordsmith or not approve it. You don't come back. So that policy with the 60 days, oh, don't worry, we break our policies sometimes. That's not an answer. This is language, and you just approve language that doesn't leave room for summer, that doesn't leave room for working conditions, that doesn't leave room for a message to our students that you didn't realize would be communicated. And if they only can tell you in public comment, you just say, well, we'll approve it, we'll come back to it. That's not how we write our laws. So if you approve 1300, which I really hope you don't, there's some language that implies that we have not been focusing on our local students. And we have. I came to you for 2 years and told you countless programs of what we were focusing on for our local students. So we don't need to reconfirm anything. We don't need to make a significant effort. We have. We don't have to, we don't will include as priority. We have. The only language that acknowledges that we have is we'll continue to enhance relationships with the foundation local. Well, yeah, that's the continue. But the others are all we will, and we have been. And as a former president and as a representative of so many hardworking people who constantly innovate, especially for our local and at-risk students, this policy offends us. So thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Our next speaker is Lori Vasquez.
Good afternoon, members of the board and Dr. Beebe. I'm standing before you today as Vice President of Academic Senate, an elected role by the Academic Senate. I serve on many governance committees on our campus, College Planning Council for many years, liaison to 4 faculty professional development committees, chair of the Instructional Technology Committee for many years, a member of the District Technology Committee, the Educational Support Division Senator, and I work with my colleagues in Disability Services and the Faculty Resource Center. I have also chaired several Chancellor's Office advisory committees over the years. I have served under 4 academic senate presidents, past President Dean Nevins, Kenley Neufeld, Kim Monda, and now our current president, Dr. Priscilla Butler. These leaders who are chosen by the faculty at our institution serve their constituents in ways that no one can really truly appreciate unless you are the one sitting in a room, problem solving, seeking additional information, compiling research, data, and seeking new ways to inform the body at large. They wear the badge of leader quietly, purposefully, and with true grit, acknowledging no one leader can do it alone. For any leader to be successful, it requires collaborative effort, understanding, and a great deal of listening, and listening, and listening. The work of the Senate takes a great deal of planning, scheduling, searching for all necessary required information, broaching new ideas, and compiling the information in a way that senators on the Academic Senate can respond to the issues. The senators are the conduit to their faculty divisions where concerns can be addressed in a timely manner. It takes time and a finely tuned calendar to ensure any concerns are addressed and the feedback is correct. Oftentimes, discussions at Senate are conducted over several meetings because all perspectives must be heard and noted in a nuanced way. It is the responsibility of our Senate President to guide those conversations for the best possible outcome. Dr. Butler is a valuable facilitator in this role. To be successful, the Senate President has to be working in tandem with multiple campus leaders who must trust and be respectful of the role they are in. Perhaps it goes without saying, but leadership in any form is not easy. All eyes are on you. For a smooth-running organization, all the information must be presented in a way the Senate can respond to and counter should there be a better solution. Our faculty are known to be engaged, thoughtful, persuasive, and forward-thinking when it comes to attending to the well-being of our college and all of its members. The Academic Senate at Santa Barbara City College follows the guidance of the statewide Academic Senate for California Community Colleges, which strives to promote the effective participation in their college's decision-making in academic and professional matters. As you know, these matters are widely known as the 10+1, specified in our BP 2510, Participation in Governance and Local Decision-Making, but also in Title V. Our board policy states the district ensures that there are opportunities for meaningful collaboration and engagement. In summary, as one member of the campus community, I care deeply about my colleagues at Santa Barbara City College. However, I do have concerns about our current process regarding the approval of board policies, as well as some of the content that have far-reaching effects on our college community. And I hope you are listening to us today.
Thank you, Lori. And Patricia Stark.
Hello, my name is Patricia Stark, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. I want to offer my support to all that was expressed just now by my colleagues regarding Board Policies 3150 and 1300. I'm now in my 8th year serving on the Academic Senate, and I am now President-elect. I will take over at the end of May in that position. I'm serving on my 4th year in the College Planning Council, and I am now a member of BPAP. I've also lived in Santa Barbara for 27 years, all of them in a house 2 blocks away from this college on Luneta Plaza on the Mesa. Both of my sons attended public schools for all 12 years, and both of them have taken between them many classes at Santa Barbara City College. My older son, Will, was lucky enough to take dual enrollment classes, and starting in his sophomore year, he took summer classes every summer. When he applied for college, Kurt Sahlberg, the late, great Kurt Sahlberg, wrote him a letter because they were good buddies. Kurt invited him up to his house, and they sat in his biking canoe because it was summer class when he was between his sophomore and junior year. Will took a lot of dual enrollment classes through our excellent dual enrollment program. And when he was a senior in high school, he was one of 2 students at Santa Barbara High School who was a National Merit Scholar. The other, interesting enough, was Jay, who is Alice Perez's son. But I can tell you that my son didn't make it to National Merit Scholar and get a very large academic scholarship to his 4-year school because of what he learned at Santa Barbara High. It was Santa Barbara City College that put him over the edge. My younger son, Luke, is now completing his lower division requirements here. He's enrolled in our excellent IPath program in our transfer academy. He plans to transfer to UC Davis. I can tell you that neither of my boys ever felt in any way disadvantaged because they grew up 5 minutes from this college. They received and are still receiving top quality education. I don't feel that we need to reaffirm or recommit to anything. My family is walking, talking testament to the quality that we offer our local students. Through my professional networks and my engagement with my son's activities, I've sat on the PTA and parent groups of every school they've attended. I've been a soccer mom, a swim mom, a mock trial mom, and so on and so on. And I've befriended many people from many walks of life in Santa Barbara. I'm proud of my social and civic engagement in the city, and I'm very proud of my service to Santa Barbara City College, which I assert to you that this college is as beloved to our community as it is to me. In terms of policy, together with my fellow academic senators, we've discussed, debated, and offered support and sometimes opposition to literally dozens of board policies over the last 3.5 years, or 4, if we extend it. But this is the first time I felt compelled to speak to you directly about any of them. We faculty do not support BP 3150 for all the reasons outlined today. We are asking that you pull it out of board review today and to refer it to the administration and the proper channels to be included in the educational master plan, where targeted numbers are set and discussed. I'm also requesting that you postpone a vote on 1300. A few minutes ago, you actually approved BP 2410, board policies and administrative procedures, which laid out an outline for substantive changes to existing board policy. As Priscilla noted, the changes in this policy are substantive. We are asking for a delay in that. This is BP 1300, as you can tell, has not been uncontroversial. Yet, as others have noted, we first saw this significant revision Monday afternoon. Our faculty has been keenly concerned with the impacts of BP 1300, its targets on the college as a whole, on our individual departments, and even on our day-to-day work lives, also that have been noted. So we are respectfully asking for time to share these revisions with our colleagues, consistent with the policy you just approved. So again, to summarize, we respectfully ask that you eliminate BP 3150, optimal college size and efficiency from board consideration, and you delay today board policy 1300. Thank you for your service to our college, and thank you for letting me speak today.
Thank you, Patricia. That concludes our, oh, Cornelia, the missing, I still didn't find it.
So here I'm again. Thank you, trustees, for giving me the opportunity to talk to you. I would like to share the Faculty Association input on BP 3150. And first and foremost, I would like to commend you for discussing the topic of efficiency, because it proves to us a number of things. It proves that our Board of Trustees deeply cares about the institution and its financial health. You are aware that a prolonged period of budget shortfalls is detrimental to our college, to our students, and to the faculty, managers, and staff who serve this fine institution. So starting this discussion is important. And I am here to suggest that at this time, we continue the discussion about these targets before we codify them into college policy. I see several reasons why today might be a bit early to finalize BP 3150, and please allow me to share those. For one, efficiency targets are a mandatory subject of collective bargaining. That means that this has to be brought to the Faculty Association for consultation, and this has not happened yet. Secondly, I believe that we all do not have enough information what reaching such an efficiency target means, what it means to class sizes, to class offerings, to pedagogy, to students, to programs, and last but not the least, to faculty and other educational staff. Or, in other words, we first need to find answers to questions like, how many more students will we have to add to each class to reach this target? Is this all possible, given our programs? How will this impact student learning? How many class sections will we have to reduce? How will this affect choices for students? How will this affect working conditions for faculty? Marsha, you are right. I stand corrected. In fact, BP 3150 was listed in July on the Senate agenda. I looked it up. However, it was not discussed then. I would assume due to time constraints in the meeting. Also, the version brought to the Senate was the one recommended by BPEP, which is in fact somewhat different from what we have in front of us today. So I feel there really was not enough time for us to gather the needed data in order to have an informed discussion. In the meantime, the Faculty Association has already requested to establish a work group with respect to this topic so that we can gather the information we need. The FA is also planning to have a faculty plenary session within the next few weeks because, after all, any efficiency target will first and foremost affect our faculty and their students. So at this point, the FA recommends that we keep in discussion, gather a good understanding by everyone involved, and garner as much buy-in as we can, and then codify a target into policy. As described before, such a policy will affect the core of how we do business here. This should definitely be something we all do together, even if that means that things will take a bit longer. I'm sure you will agree with me on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cornelia.
Yeah, you can.
Okay. I think, Paul, you were going to help us by giving us some discussion on some of the questions that we have heard and maybe help people see the answers to some of those questions. We did have an extensive presentation by Paul at our retreat when we initially discussed 1300 and 3150. That was in February of 2017, as I think Jonathan may have mentioned. So the board had the benefit of that presentation, but I think maybe revisiting some of that for folks who didn't listen to the tapes or weren't there would be helpful.
Sure, let me give and thank you and good evening. Let me give a little perspective of, at least in my mind, what initially started this conversation on campus. When I first arrived in my role in July last year, we were in the middle of trying to understand the third year, or we're in the third year, the second year at that time of a pretty precipitous decline in enrollment. We formulated or reformed an enrollment management committee that had met for, I think, many years, but had really focused on just the enrollment process, meaning registering students in classes. We tried to take that a little different angle and ask the question, if we wanted to develop a strategic enrollment management plan for Santa Barbara City College, what might that plan look like? Who would be the key players for that decision? So we started that conversation, and initially what I did to educate myself about the institution and also to maybe shed some light on that was that I looked at historic trends and enrollment patterns at the institution, and we focused on, because really just for convenience, because the data were readily available in Banner and Tableau the past 9 years. So we looked at 9-year trends. And I looked at the 9-year trends with regard to FTS, head count, proportion of residents, non-residents, students in credit, non-credit, CTE, basic skills, and transfer programs. That was kind of my frame of reference. That's what most enrollment management plans focus on. What is the mix of those for this particular institution? So we looked at those averages, and from those averages, we began to have a conversation in the fall, and throughout the fall with a number of different groups about if we just took the average of that 9 years, realizing that there was a peak that occurred probably in 2012, 13 in that area, what would our institution look like if we were the average of all of those, taking that, averaging out that peak? And that's the numbers we started at, and they're not too far from the numbers that I presented at the board retreat, or the number, the 15,000 number that's listed in here. It came out of, the 15,000 number came out of that discussion of looking at what were our historic averages in resident and non-resident FTS. So throughout fall semester, we looked at that mix. We had pretty much the same conversation with Enrollment Management Committee, College Planning Council, Faculty Senate. We had a discussion at Faculty In-Service, actually 2 different in-services last year, one for the fall and one for spring, around trying to drill down on an optimal size or an optimal mix for this institution, because the enrollment management strategy that had been used up to that date was I want to chase the FTS, chase the growth to maximize the income to the district. That resulted in, since we did that strategy, the students didn't come. That resulted in a pretty inefficient offering of courses as a result of chasing the FTS, adding classes, and not having the enrollment there to support those classes. So we had a conversation about the other type of enrollment management, and that is where we determine what's the optimal mix right now for our institution and the community, and we build programs and offerings around that mix. And so we started with that 9-year average. We also had a lot of conversation happening in the fall, people just expressing, subjectively, but just that it seemed like things were less crowded, students moved through student services more easily, classes weren't as impacted. In part, that's because we were overscheduled as a result of the chasing the FTS kind of mentality. But last year, 16-17, we finished right at about 14,600 FTS. So we finished in the ballpark of what we thought might work for this institution and could form the basis of a strategic enrollment management plan. And that's kind of how we settled in on the numbers. We subsequently then, I think we may have even voted on the numbers at CPC or something at one point, but at least there was consensus that seemed like a reasonable plan to start managing around. And in fact, that's pretty much what we've built. The model, when we built in our 5-year projections, were all sort of based on trying to reach that mix in about 2020, given our enrollments fluctuation and trying to manage to that mix. And that's sort of the history, I think, of how we arrived at the 15,000 and
And I
really
think
from the historical perspective.
and what you're saying is within that 15,000, the discussion also included the different kinds of students that we have. We have online students, we have non-resident students, we have.
We didn't break out the online camp. I mean, we had discussions about that, or I don't know if we did in this format, but I certainly have had discussions with a variety of people about that. It was really looking at the mix of credit versus non-credit, and then looking at resident versus non-resident. We didn't really disaggregate. We talked about the numbers apart from that, but we didn't really talk about an enrollment strategy that would manage to a different mix of in-district versus out-of-district and things like that. It was just a resident versus a non-resident comparison. That's how the FTS are calculated, and we focused on the FTS.
I'd like to say something.
Yeah, there's resident, non-resident, yeah. I get it.
In terms of one of the comments that was made relative to the Carver model and the idea of we have ends, which is what the board is concerned with. Here's an end that we want to try to get to, a goal that we want to try to get to. And we have means. We have methods and means. And in my view, the topic of the mix, whether it's online, dual enrollment, whatever that may be, is really getting into more of the means part of this. It's not the ends. The ends would be the 15,000, that you all have been talking about, and that we've discussed as being a comfortable size for the institution in terms of, community impact and all the other elements that make up that very complicated number. I just felt it was important to be able to make sure that we emphasize that the mix and how we get to the 15,000 really is something that would be more operational and something that we would be dealing with on the college side.
Right. I mean, our goal all along was to have this form the conversation, the formation of some sort of strategic enrollment management plan that would kind of guide our decision-making on campus, or at least give us a framework to operate within.
And that really would be encapsulated in the educational master plan or some kind of a strategic plan that would be devised by the college constituency groups.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, that's, I think our vision has been that way.
Okay. David?
Yeah, just a question for Paul. Will there ever be, actually a couple questions. Will there ever be a cap on students? 15.
Head count, you mean, or like number of bodies, or?
Well, 15,000 FTES translates into a certain number of students, whatever that may be.
Given the mix of full-time, part-time, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
When we say optimal size, are we suggesting that sometime down the road there will be a cap? And my second question is, in 2009, there were 16,000 students on main campus. I think there was something like 21,000 students on this campus. Second question is, will we be ready with our resources to serve those students? Or are we going to plan our resources around 15,000 so that when there are more students that come, we may not be prepared?
Yeah, thanks, David. I get what you're asking. The 15,000 is really a funding number. It's how the state funds the 114 community colleges in the system by allocating full-time equivalent student funding, and they give us, a little over $5,000 per full-time equivalent student. The state puts a cap on resident FTS for a district that they will fund. Any resident FTS that a district earns beyond what the state caps us at for funding are unfunded FTS. And you'll sometimes hear colleges, when they give year-end reports about FTS and what targets they hit, that they had X number of unfunded FTS. And most districts have some. We're in a decline right now, so that hasn't been an issue for us because we've been under the cap that the state have given us because we've been in a decline. With regard to head count, it's in the student's best interest and our best interest to have programming that, to the extent possible, and a student can accommodate that they are as full-time as their lives can allow. So I would say that from a strategy for success, we would want to achieve these 15,000 FTS on the lowest head count possible, only because we know that the more classes a student takes, the more full-time they are, the more likely they are to be successful, both in those classes they're taking and in their degree objectives. So I would say that would be a sort of goal for us in the big picture, is to have that, because that's better for student success. Did that answer your question, or?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up.
And Anthony wanted to make a comment.
I just wanted to kind of put this into perspective. Our FTES for last year was roughly 14,000.
14,636.
14,636. I wasn't sure that everybody knew that, so I just wanted to make sure that,
And
to
next
help with
year, we're
perspective.
projecting lower.
Yeah, this current year
About
will be a
14.
little lower, about 4.5% to 5% probably. Next year, we're hoping that will tail off a little bit. I think we're starting to reach I hope, the bottom.
Yeah, I looked at it as about 1,000 short of this number in FTES.
Mhm.
But were you going to?
Well, I was just going to say, I hope that we get to the problem that you're discussing.
Yeah, just one of my answers wasn't fully, or one of my questions wasn't fully answered. Will we ever have a cap on out-of-state and international students? Is that what this is suggesting?
We have a board
have one
policy
now.
currently of 1,500 students for international students. We don't have a cap on non-residents in terms of numbers, and we can't put a cap on resident students in the state of California.
So will we ever have a cap on non-resident students?
We have a cap on non-residents per se, as opposed to international.
Right.
That's not my decision to make. Yeah, can't tell you.
It's a board decision.
Yeah.
We have an obligation as a community college in this state to accept all students that come to us that are ready and prepared to become educated and learn. That's an obligation that we have to be as part of our state system. And that's really, I think, where the tension is. The tension is because we have a district, we have a community college service area that's defined geographically, like all 114 community colleges. And the tension becomes when we're in a situation in the hypothetical situation of growing, as what you're suggesting, David, how then does the mix look? We're not there, it's a hypothetical situation. I mean, we're still struggling with enrollments to try to stabilize and hopefully get to that scenario. But, you know, with Promise programs that are taking off across the state now, and we've got, I think, close to 50 of them, the Promise programs are about helping those within the various districts be able to have access to a community college education. And the Promise programs are varied in terms of how they're structured, but they are all structured in a sense of supporting the local students in that particular service area, in that community college. And so there is somewhat of a natural support mechanism that's kind of already being built, and a re-recognition and reconfirmation, if you will, of the service areas that are happening across the state. And obviously, if we didn't do that, which we are recognizing the importance of our service area and giving recognition to the Promise students. If we didn't do that, and the other districts around the state are doing that, it would certainly put our students here at a disadvantage in the Santa Barbara Community College District. So thankfully, and I agree with the comments that were made, we are recognizing the importance of our service area. We are serving our service area already and doing an excellent job of that. So I felt like I wanted to make that statement relative to the local service area.
Paul, did you have more comments, or?
Only if you have more questions.
Okay.
Oh, I said I think she needs a motion before we discuss.
Questions? David?
Yeah, I had my questions, but I actually wanted to address a couple of the public comments.
Well, wait a minute, we're talking about whether anyone has questions about Paul, so let's finish that first.
Okay.
So,
Well, just to, yeah, the suggestion has been made, especially about 3150, that it not be, essentially not be seen as a board policy, but instead seen as part of the overall strategic plan generated at year's end. How would you respond to that suggestion?
I'm personally fine with it in a strategic plan or an educational master plan. It's common to have targets in educational master plans or strategic master plans, strategic enrollment management plans. That's a common place where you find these kinds of things, especially ones that are broken out in more detail.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Very good question. That was,
yeah.
thanks for the.
Well,
More comments?
if I might, it seems to me that through the entire discussion, if I could sort of jump in at the macro level, there are two categories of questions. One has to do with process. And did we establish a process, and have we followed it? And the other has to do with the substance of the board policies being considered. The process part, I'm a little confused, and I'm hoping somebody will clarify it for me. Board policy means that the board makes a decision about policy. It receives recommendation from all sorts of participatory groups, but ultimately the decision is made here. I don't think there's any question about that. At least if there is, I've not heard it today. So I think unless somebody jumps up and says, you're just dead wrong, we can take that as a given. Was there sufficient time allotted to provide the kind of input? The suggestion was made, and especially with respect to Board Policy 1300, that it wasn't submitted in time. The Academic Senate did not have sufficient time to review it, did they? Did we err on that score?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it was on the Academic Senate agenda, as I said, on July 12th. I'm a little puzzled by the idea of having an agenda that you do not finish. We don't do that here. We have to finish the agenda. We don't go home. So,
Is that a threat?
no, I'm just saying I'm not letting you go home till we're done with everything
Well,
on here.
I guess-
So, but even ignoring that, it was discussed at some length, I believe, according to the minutes, for, what is it, August 30th. And the Academic Senate discussed it then. And the comments were, as I read them, according to the minutes again, fairly mixed. You know, there was an issue about whether to strike out the language about the history of the college involvement. And someone said that they don't think that's the way we normally do that. Well, we had that discussion ourselves about context, and some of our best policies have good context, academic freedom, ethics, the meaning of getting a degree at this institution. So we had that discussion in response to that the first time we considered, I think that was August 24th, our first reading of that. But someone commented in Academic Senate, what would be the harm in keeping the language? It's for the local community. Someone else said the second strikeout paragraph below the mission is a description of what is happening here now, the promise the underserved students. Keep it and give local students priority access. So that's saying don't strike it out. Somebody else says policy is a result of deep history in the community, and this could be an opportunity for faculty to showcase to the board and community the wonderful things we do, e.g. CTE. And frankly, that's what I see. I see an opportunity here. I see,
I have a point of information.
Yes.
Sorry about that. So for BP 1300, there were significant change, to answer your question, there were significant changes that were made that have not been to Academic Senate. So in front of you, you have BP 1300 that says local access and success focus. Just looking at them without really looking deeply, this one that we potentially will approve says local service area emphasis. This has not been presented to Academic Senate, as far as I'm aware.
David, could we stick to the policy that we're on, which is 3150?
Right. His question was, have the BPs been to Academic Senate? And I just
And
wanted
I'm
to
answering that question.
point of
So
information, which is there are radical changes that have not.
I hear that you're saying that, but I will get to that, okay? So I was recounting when Academic Senate had it on the agenda and discussed it, and that was August 30th, and then again September 13th and September 27th. It was, they were on the, 3150 is on the agenda again, 1300 and 3150 on September 13th. So you're talking about 4 Academic Senate agendas with these policies on them. It's hard for me to think that that's not time to discuss it for that particular group. BPAP commented on May 19th, both 1300 and 3150. And then again, they wanted to better explain their comments after our discussion when we had our first reading. And so they asked for an initial extension and then a second extension, and gave us additional comments on September 29th. Now, I'm thinking it will be useful to us to go through those comments because BPAP is the entity that comments to us, and so we can understand what those comments are. The rest of our participatory governance feeds in to BPAP, which has representatives for Academic Senate and students and so forth. So that's kind of the focus point here. That's why we have BPAP. But it's, it is the process that we have described, and the fact that there are some changes in the most recent version, in my view, does not send it back into the cycle again for more months, because those changes were intended to respond to BPAP's comments. And that as well, we can go through. I mean, the point here is for the board to understand that we have taken these steps, and then what the comments are, and talk about whether we agree or disagree with those comments. So my suggestion would be, if I don't see a procedural issue. I recognize David's comment, but at some point when you change something in response to a comment, it doesn't become a new something. So,
Right.
so I think it's worth just getting into the more detail on that. Marty?
I have, like Peter, I have the procedural issues here that I'd like to talk about first. The substance and so on, I think people need to work it out and talk about it. But I think, first of all, I don't think everybody up here, I'll only speak for myself, but I don't think any of us, I would hope that we are not being critical of the Academic Senate or critical of BPAP to say, you should have finished this discussion. I mean, that's what it kind of sounds like we're saying. You should have finished that. You had an agenda. Why didn't you finish it? If that happens, my goodness, we're going to have people coming to us to say, what happened with that one? Why didn't you finish it instead of sending it on to whatever? I'm not that critical of other bodies. In fact, I think they do a great job. It adds to their burden, I know that, but I think they do a really great job. From my sitting up here, I've always respected them when they bring things to us, and I want to hear what they have to say. So for us to be very critical of their agendas, I don't think is a good idea. Secondly, you mentioned that we have a new flow chart.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Anthony and Kenley are working on, I don't know that it'll be a flow chart. I mean,
Okay,
we
but-
have a new policy which outlines the process, which is, we hope, a simpler thing.
Okay. We sat in all those meetings and had a certain procedure that we had to go through to change or to
Right.
update all the board policies. You indicated a little while ago that we have a new procedure now, that this
we
one's
ju-
going
That
through.
we adopted now, just today, a few minutes ago. And when we came to the end of that grand review of everything, the catch-up review, as you may remember, Lori, Dr. Gaskin was extremely emphatic that the committees and that process was over. We were done.
Right.
So that's the kind of, okay, now we've got it caught up, so we're
But-
going to go forward.
Okay, I understand, but I think it's important that we all know what the process is. And
Right.
we
And
haven't
that's
voted
this-
on it, we don't know what it is. I mean,
No,
from
we
my point of
do.
view.
That's in the policy we just adopted. The big picture, the policy level. Now, will there be an AP that reflects that? That would be the next step.
Okay, it says, okay.
But it would not happen until we had the policy, so.
Okay, I feel like we're going in circles here, and I'm not quite understanding how this is working. But the third thing I wanted to ask is the first reading. When we have a first reading of something, then we have time for a second reading. The second reading we found, and
Right.
so on. I don't remember, I don't think a first reading can ever be at a retreat.
It wasn't, that was discussed.
I know, but
Okay.
somebody mentioned that. I just wanted to say, that can't be, because at a retreat, you don't have all these things listed. I mean, there's no listing of the agenda with line-by-line sort of thing. So there's no way that first reading should be or can be at a retreat. I feel like there's a lot of angst about this process. And my problem with, well, let's just take 3150. You could have this discussion, we could discuss this forever and ever, I know that. But in 3150, I'm not sure why we're even talking about head count versus FTES, I mean, everything that was presented was FTES, and this is head count, so I guess I need to know how that works out. I feel like there's enough angst about all of this that it's not right for us to just pass it necessarily today. My problem is, too, when I look at this, I have this at home, I'm looking at it, I want to know, what was the old one? What did it look like? And what was the one when it went to BPAP? I don't ever get to see any of those things. You really don't.
Well,
So that's
last
my-
time, folks got confused because we had different versions of it, so we were trying to make it simpler. The older versions are on there, but if you would prefer having all of the versions, that's certainly something we can do in the future.
Well,
Absolutely.
there has to be a final version, which is the one
We're
that
looking
came
at,
in,
yeah.
But I do need to know how this was changed. I mean,
Well, that's
is
what
it-
I was suggesting we talk about, but I don't think we're quite done process, because I think you were concerned about that.
Right.
Okay, so the first reading for 1,300 and 3150 was August 24th. That was our first reading. It was a regular meeting. It was noticed as the first reading. So.
Okay.
So
So this is essentially a second reading?
this is the second reading. That's correct. So you have the comments from BPAP on 3150. Does everyone have that piece of paper? It has 3 boxes on it.
Except the one online is 1,500 and this one's 1,300.
3150?
No, 1,300 full and part-time, but the one online says 1,500.
Really?
No, I have them both.
Mine says 3150.
What does the other one say?
The one on the one online says 1,500.
I don't know.
This one says.
On the board
Not on-
docs?
I'm not online.
Well, sorry, Angie, I shut down the wonderful device you got me. Of the grade. Online, it says optimal size 1,500.
Not on mine.
15,000?
I'm sorry, 15,000, yes.
Oh, okay, jeez. We're back.
Because I'm thinking of the international student, 1,500.
We're back. Okay, 15,000. So does everyone have this piece of paper which has the yellow highlighting and the 3 boxes? Okay. So the first box says BPAP feedback. Would it be misleading to the public to include this narrative based on a snapshot report that was based on 2013 data? And this is the reference to the FCMAT report. So in response to that comment, the first paragraph was basically a little more information was added to the first paragraph, more explanatory information. Because clearly we're not talking about a snapshot on 2013 data, 14 data. We're talking about all of the budget information we have been looking at for quite some time, including the projections and the fact that if we don't act, our reserves are basically gone in about 3 years. A little bit left, but we don't have campus center reserves, and we are eating through and well below our board policy reserves. So this is a serious ongoing structural deficit that we are addressing in this policy. So what we did was we tried to explain in greater detail that the Board of Trustees, with concurrence of the superintendent president, asked FCMAT to conduct a fiscal management analysis of the district's budget and reserves. FCMAT issued the report validating the ongoing budget deficit and summarizing the important steps needed to achieve and maintain future financial stability. The FCMAT chief management analyst And then we go into the quote. That is the same quote. So in response to BPAP comments, we expanded the explanation of what happened. It was in there as context, and I think it's important context, because FCMAT recommended this as critical for enrollment efficiency, critical to approve broad, high-level policy on enrollment strategy. Now, they said determining strategic mix of credit, career development, and college, and CDCP and regular non-credit. We did not go there for the reasons that Anthony talked about earlier. We said how you get to that 15,000 FTES is operational, is something that's very complex that we look to Paul, to Anthony, to all of our people to sort out and figure out how you get to that. We're looking at the big picture numbers here, and FCMAT is saying you need to tell folks what to do at the policy level. So the end point, and there was a version here that said 13,000 main campus students. Thinking at that point was, well, maybe that's easier for the public to understand. Comments came back and said, no, we got a budget to FTES. Everything we do relates to FTES, so we really want it to be in FTES. So this version says FTES. There's been 3 versions. 15,000 FTES started, went to 13,000 full and part-time students, went back to FTES 15,000. And that's what Paul was describing, went through CPC, is incorporated in Lindsay's budget assumptions, all of that. We're aiming for a 2020 balanced budget at these levels. Actually, the projections are lower because our enrollment is still dropping, but we're hopeful we'll come out of that. Okay. FCMAT also said that efficiency, enrollment efficiency and productivity must be a part of this. Such a policy is critical in helping the college determine its optimal size and composition to develop a multi-year financial plan. These are the experts, and they are telling us these are things we need to do to avoid having FCMAT come back in its other incarnation and do it for us. And they won't make it pleasant. They'll take about 3 or 4 days. They'll say, here's the numbers you're laying off, go to it. We don't want to go there. So this is the second piece of it, optimal enrollment management efficiency. Again, I think, and Anthony, you can comment on this, we're looking for an end. We're looking for that goal point in the Carter model, and how you get there is very complex. There's a whole range of factors here that I'm sure Paul could tell us for an hour or more about. It's not any one thing. Operational, we're setting the goal, the target, you're figuring out how to do that. And I'm sure you will need all kinds of help from all parts of the college. So one other thing I'd like to point out here relative to the efficiency target. Before we go back to the BPAP comments, and that is I was asking myself late in 2016, why can't we afford to pay our faculty at least median salary? How come other districts can pay their faculty and staff more than we can afford? And then it occurred to me it must be an efficiency issue. So I started Googling efficiency and came upon a report, West Valley Mission Community College District, March 24th, 2011. And it was by the College Brain Trust, which some of you may know is a well-regarded consultant. President of San Mateo, retired. College of San Mateo was the project leader. Vice President, Student Services, College of San Mateo, faculty member, Foothill College, all these people are retired. Executive Vice President, Santa Monica College, and Rocky Young, who was the Chancellor of Los Angeles Community College District, who we had considered ourselves hiring at one point. They were analyzing these two colleges. And what leaped out at me when I read about this was the statement that a reasonable, Mission College must also focus intently upon improving its course scheduling and enrollment management processes. The procedures and practices in place have made it extremely difficult to achieve and sustain efficiency. The team recommends the process be examined and streamlined. In addition, a reasonable WSCH FTEF, which is what we are setting as the goal here, would be 595. We're not talking about a number like that. Paul's numbers are lower than that. I think they're 525 to 540 range. And they said in spring 2008, WSCH FTEF for Mission College was 441.8. That's about where I am told we are. Between fall '05 and spring '08, it ranged from 441.8 to 513.8, which is almost the 525. A single college, community college district operating at this efficiency level over an extended period of time simply could not survive. That's the sentence that really caught my attention. Could not survive. And that, for me, said we should look at this. We need to look at this. And thank goodness we had Paul, who understood how to look at this. So, returning to BPAP's comments, box on the left talked about 13,000 unduplicated headcount and the desire to go back to FTES. That was done. So I think that box was accounted for, made that change. On the right-hand side, there's a box that says this number represents significant improvement over current efficiency as the impact on instruction, working conditions, student persistence been considered. Increasing class size is the most direct method to achieve efficiency, but has a negative correlation with student success. CTE programs have lower class size than other programs, and in order to preserve the range of CTE offerings for our community, we need to account for smaller class size. We recommend ending the sentence at 525. Well, you know, I kind of go back to the West Mission Valley, which seems to be telling me that number doesn't work. These are statewide numbers, statewide averages. And frankly, we're looking here to our administration to figure out that complex thing, because there's so many moving parts in achieving an efficiency, and it isn't just class size, I'm sure. I mean, Paul, would you care to comment on what those moving parts?
Sure, thank you. You know, when we look at efficiency, the number, the wish per FTF number of 525 that's mentioned on a standard calendar, that directly relates to class size. That's an average class size of 35. And it was accepted years ago that that's kind of the standard based upon our funding model, that in order for us to be able to offer programmings and whatever as a system, that's the number that we should really try to manage for. When we look at that number, you can increase efficiency a number of ways without actually raising class size, and that is by managing to make sure that the classes that you have are full, and that's kind of the sort of efforts that we've been undergoing. in the spring and last spring and this fall is to really try to have the schedule reflect better the demand, given that we have a decline. And so our efficiencies no doubt have gone up. I feel very comfortable that they've gone up quite a bit as a result of that. And so that's been the primary way we've been trying to do it, scheduling classes in the sizes that fit the class capacity as opposed to smaller classrooms and just little things like that to try to adjust it without having to affect a discussion around changing the actual size of the class that's accepted through curriculum.
Persistence?
Persistence works towards FTES for sure, and certainly persistence to census is a big thing that we can help here, right? We may start a class with 35 students, but may only have 30 at census or something. So that is certainly the persistence to census is a statistic that we should be tracking to manage too as well.
And we are having that conversation right now in terms of how we can improve that. And, you know, we've got time. We're talking about a target of 2020. And these are some things these are broad conversations that we're working on the college side on how to be able to achieve that.
Yeah, it's, like I said, it's operational, it's complex. We're looking for the generally accepted standard that, as you said, that is looked at statewide, and apparently it's not something that we were looking at as a college, as an institution before. Sometimes that helps to realize what the statewide standards are, and having this operational deficit, structural operation deficit, is clearly part of why that happened. I suppose another choice could be that faculty could say, I don't want to increase efficiency, but I'll take a lower salary instead. I mean, you're trading off, in effect. Lower salary, less class, less class size or scheduling or whatever, however you work that through.
I have a request of information. So I was just wondering, Anthony, in San Diego at your community college, did you guys have a board policy that set an optimal size?
Well, the whole San Diego Community College District was growing, and so it was kind of a different scenario. We didn't have FCMAT come in. We didn't have a structural deficit that we were trying to correct. So we didn't need to have a target like this to manage to. I think that was some of what Dr. Terrell was talking about in terms of we hadn't had really an enrollment management practice here that managed to a particular target. It was really about the process of getting people enrolled, and in some cases it was about pursuing FTES growth in whatever means it would take to get to that growth. So it was just a kind of a different scenario that we were up against in San Diego.
Just a follow-up, are there any community colleges in California that have a board policy for optimal size?
Well, related to what I just said, I don't believe that there's probably any community college in California that has a deficit, structural deficit, like we have in this district, that we have to try to unravel and figure out how to get out of. So we're in a unique situation here, so I wouldn't imagine there probably is another community college that has this kind of a policy.
The other thing I might add to that is the state has a master plan, 2016 master plan for planning on what are the needs for colleges, what's the enrollment need. And the way they look at it is they say community colleges, they specifically say in the plan, community colleges are primarily commuter colleges. Their commute that they look at is 30 minutes plus including 5 minutes looking for parking, which people here would probably not agree with. And then they say, what's the population growth in an area? and what are the needs of that community? What programs do you want to offer? What's the community support for it? How do I decide to add a new community college? Things are all very community. They are virtually all community questions. And the Board of Governors has to approve if you want to do that. Well, basically, you're saying, here's a new population explosion here. We're going to add a new community college to address that need. We're not stuck with a limit on the number of community colleges. And that's how we really create the access around the state. People have those colleges within range for them to go to. So, questions, comments, folks? Jonathan?
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about having an optimal size and like the benefits and the benefits of having an optimal efficiency. So I think there's no like deep disagreement there. But I think as much as we think those things are important, and they are, I think it's just as important to have like buy-in to the decisions we make. Like, I don't want to create a policy that no one's going to want to be happy enforcing. I think I want to have a policy that everyone is behind. So I personally do not see I mean, I'm encouraged by Cornelia's comments that you want to have a plenary and have people discuss and, you know, even just be more educated at the very least. I understand. Like, so I personally would not be, I don't think we're losing anything by waiting a little more, but I also don't want to wait a little more and then have this situation again. Like, I want us, I think it would be good to delay by a short amount of time, not 2 weeks, but a little more than that, and then have something, because I didn't even hear about this educational master plan option or alternative until today. So maybe that's something that can be discussed and worked out between the participatory groups and the administration. So while I completely support the idea of having an optimal size, I want us to do that. I think that's for the best of the college. I want us to have buy-in in doing that. So I would stand behind a measured delay, not a open-ended delay, but a defined amount of time to say, we'll come back to reconsider this. Because now we've had this pretty deep discussion. We've heard a lot from people, so we're in it. So I think we're close to finding a solution, but I think the entire college would benefit. Our decision would have more legitimacy if we waited just a little bit more. But I would say that if we did the whole process and the policy came up, like it came back just as it is now, I'd probably vote yes. I mean, I agree with the concept, so I agree with the details and the concept. So I'd like to see more buy-in, but I think that this is the direction we've understood we need to go in.
Greg?
You know, I couldn't get,
Greg?
I'm glad I don't, did I get it on now? It's on, good. All right, man, I don't get paid for this, and I don't know that you could pay me enough to do this job.
Closer.
But, still closer, I'm not going to eat the microphone, I promise. What I really would like to say about this is I really appreciated the demonstrated emotion, planning, and forethought of the comments that were presented to this board. I especially appreciate the forthrightness and a little bit of emotion presented by Dr. Monda. I have a great deal of respect for our faculty. This is my, fifth year or so on this board. And when I first got here, I was trying to figure out what was going on. And I looked around, and I've made these comments before, but I've got to keep reminding myself to never forget. When this college won the Aspen Award, I wasn't here when all the work was done for that to be achieved. Lori Gaskin was president at the time, but she wasn't here when all the work was done. And there were all kinds of problems on this college, but I do remember, and I don't want to ever forget that it was the faculty and staff that won that award. That's what it was. That's just flat truth. Now, then we encountered some difficulties just a few years ago after we finally sort of got over the thing with we're not doing adult ed anymore, at least our style of it. And then we started having some negative feedback from the community, which this board listened to and tried to participate in. And we listened to the public, and we saw what was in the news, and we did some things. Maybe all of us didn't vote exactly the same on them, but you know, we no longer have one of the private schools here teaching English classes, you know, on campus. Didn't make sense to me. Those students had private home stays and weren't even driving around in cars in the community. I don't know why we gave up that income when right now we wish we had it. But we did. That's listening to the public, the district, those people that vote for the members on this board. That's who we have to listen to and represent here when we sit here and we make these decisions. And these decisions have profound effects on faculty, staff, and even more important than that, or at least as important, is the students. And when I hear from, and when we get to hear from foreign students that come here and hear their experiences and their concerns, I mean, we've had foreign students sit on the board here, student trustees. They're young people, they're learning. I don't know anybody could quantify, and I can't do this, and I haven't heard any faculty do this for me. Can anybody actually quantify or put a number on just what the benefit is to our students because these foreign students are on our campus or the out-of-state students are on the campus? But everybody says yes, but nobody, you know, if we can do that, that would help us better communicate with our electorate, those people that vote for us. So what we've done is we did raise the rates a little bit for the foreign students to come in. And we knew when we did that, and you can look at our minutes of board meetings when this happened, and I don't remember the dates. But when we studied that, we looked at, well, gee, it's not just putting a cap on it. We could just, by adjusting the rate or the fees, that will affect the number of students. Problem is, now we're looking at, with all those things that happened, and we tried to react to the public, now, and I've had faculty give me side comments, pro and con to what I was thinking. You know, maybe those students shouldn't be here, and maybe these shouldn't be like that, but the thing is, it's what it is and how it affects us, but those students, that's who it affects. And
Craig, I don't
I know
think
I'm
that's
getting
the
long-winded,
issue.
but
Yeah,
you
no,
know, I
I'm not-
listen
I'm
to a
just
lot of
saying I don't
stuff
think
here, and I'm
that's the
not quite
issue.
done.
Okay, I'm saying go, but we're not doing the mix. We, the board, are not doing the mix. We're leaving that to the operational side.
Yeah,
Right,
So-
but
And
we're
I-
setting the
This-
policy that they're doing this under, and I don't have a problem with what they're trying to do, because in my summation, what I'm trying to get to here really is we need this to, we've got to get more efficient, one way or the other. We have to control the costs, or the doors don't stay open. We're fine for the next couple of years. I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about where this college is going to be in 10 years, in 5 years, in 10 years. I want those doors to be open. I want young people that are going to be able to do what I was able to do, to come and get a college education and get started, which I wouldn't have probably done if this institution hadn't been here. I could get as emotional as anybody else. But we've got a job to do here. If you got a better way to do it, we can work together and come up with a good solution. If we need to frame this a little differently, if you like that scope, if it needs to be done under an educational master plan, I'm fine with that. But let's keep this discussion so that we're working on this together. Everybody cares as much as you do, Dr. Mondo. We all care. We don't get paid for this. You might, but we don't. So I'll be quiet now. I'm done.
Thank you. No, I appreciate everything you said. You know, I have been very, at my prior institution, I was faculty for many years, but as a manager, I didn't get to work much with faculty. We do have a very rich culture here of management working with faculty to arrive at solutions that work for this institution, and I have every intent of adhering to that same culture. Where we'll take this. And by the way, what I heard from some of my favorite people I get to work with is passion. And I think that's what we don't want to ever lose in this, because that's what gives us the programs, and that's what gives us the accolades that we get, like the Aspen Award. What we will do with this, and by we I mean the campus community, is we're going to continue with the work. We started this conversation before FCMAT came in.
Yes.
We started this conversation with the faculty at CPC in July last year. That conversation will continue. I don't pretend, nor would I ever pretend to know what the right mix of students is for this institution, nor is that a static thing. That changes depending upon conditions. And we will have the process in place that will allow us to have a strategic plan that allows us to have it be adaptable to those kinds of changing conditions. And that's the goal that we're shooting for. That's the one, it doesn't live on a shelf, it's a living document, it's a living process, and that's what we're going to be producing on the campus through the proper channels. So regardless of the outcome here, I mean, I view that as one of my primary jobs on campus, is to shepherd this through, this enrollment management and the capacity and efficiencies and what the mix is. And I'll work with anyone who will work with me on that end.
By the way, we've made grand headway in some of these areas.
We
Thanks to
certainly have.
Dr. Jarrell and the Academic Senate.
Couldn't have done it without them.
And we've done some remarkable work in this direction already. So it's not like we're starting with a clean slate from ground zero. I mean, we've already been doing this. And, I mean, it's like some of the things that we've been talking about at CPC. Quite honestly, I originally brought to CPC an idea of a deep hiring freeze, just as an example of how we work together. And through significant deliberations and a great deal of discussion, we came up with the Workforce Reduction Attrition Plan, or RAP as we call it. And Lindsay's run it through her financial projections and presented that to CPC, and in fact, with great discipline, and we hold to it, which we will reach break even by 2020, which is why that time frame is important to us. So I just tell you that as an example of how we do work together, and we get things done, and we can figure some things out on the operational side.
But you are assuming, and we saw that in the budget projections, increases in efficiency, which you think are achievable in our long-term budget projections.
I do.
Yeah,
I don't think it'll be easy, but yeah, I believe it's possible.
yeah. So I think we're talking about the same thing there, that, whether or not this becomes a board policy, as FCMAT has said it needs to be, or it becomes something anywhere else, we can't not face up to the budget problem.
And Marcia, that reminds me of, we had, I think, Craig, it was probably one of our Brown Act trainings that he does, and he said, boards are expected to take on these issues head on. And you're right, Jonathan, it would be ideal to just have board meetings like we always have, where it's clean, everybody's happy, we're a great college, and then you come up to some issues like this and they're uncomfortable. Not to act, also, I don't think is an option. And so you sit at this table to make bold decisions for the future of this institution. I think that we've had a lot of conversations, like you said. I can't even think of telling the dean of the School of Extended Learning or the work of Lindsay. I feel like there's so much work. This is really the vision for this beyond this policy. I think the vision for this has been going because you see so many different things that have already gone underway, that the presentations from the fiscal end of it, that's just one whole side of it in itself. That's been a long process. And now you have the School of Extended Learning. That's a huge other process that so many people are jazzed about. That was really cool for me to hear, just their conversations and their heartbeat for that. So I am comfortable to move approval. I trust that this is a target. It's like 2020. Goodness, if you're like, hey, it's a year, this thing's not looking good, and someone tells Dr. Beebe, Dr. Beebe's going to come tell us, you guys, we're bringing this back and we're going to revise it. Same thing with the, we did that with national students. I was like, no, 1,500 is going to be higher than 8%. And you guys were like, it's fine, Veronica, let's just check it out, revisit it. Okay, good. So I think we do that all the time. We trust in what we need to do to move this institution forward. I think this is fine. You guys have done so much work. I have sat in so many meetings listening about this in the last year, that to not vote and act on this, then I would feel like my volunteer time is like, really, I'm doing this for volunteer, which I'll continue to do, but I honor your time. You guys have talked a lot about this. I want to move approval on this item, on item 7.2.
Okay, do we have a second? Mary Ann?
Second.
Mary Ann seconds. Okay, well, we can continue our discussion. I don't want to take it forever, though. There are limits. Let's give other people a chance for a minute here, David. Peter, you haven't commented lately.
Well, I think the thing to remember, and I think the discussion has been moving in that direction, is that we're essentially all on the same team. It isn't a matter of good and evil. What we're disagreeing about, or potentially disagreeing about, is how best to move forward. I would not be opposed to a specified delay in voting. If I could be assured that something very specific is going to happen between now and that date, because I believe that we're moving forward on this policy no matter what. We're moving already. We're acting as if it is policy. And so whether we raise our hands today or in 2 weeks should not matter a great deal. But I am concerned about the idea of buy-in, and if there are procedural discussions here, that things that didn't happen that should have happened, but I'm hearing that they did happen. And so I'm trying to find some other reason why there are so many deep and emotional points to be made. And maybe it's as simple as the fact that we're rejecting the idea that we have a very serious problem. The $9 million structural deficit defined as something that happens year after year until we fix it. That should scare us all. That really should scare us all. So, and I have no problem admitting that at first I enjoyed rejecting that idea. It really wasn't real. It wasn't going to happen in my life. Yes, it is.
Basic human nature, deny.
Right. So if we can get to that point, maybe we can find that we really do have some common ground and move forward. We must move forward. We must adopt something, whether it's this policy or part of the strategic plan, that says, here's what we're going to do about this problem. And maybe step one is recognizing that we have one.
Well, thank you, Peter. I think that's a really important comment. Jonathan?
Since we've recognized that we need to do this, and FCMAT, I mean, this is a very explicit paragraph from FCMAT that we need to do this. We've recognized that. Maybe, and to Peter's point, I like what you had to say that, we not just delay, but have a specific sequence of events that would happen if we delayed, not just delay, think about it more, and come back. Like, that's a waste of time. Maybe that delay could be the discussion of, do we implement this through a board policy or through the educational master plan amendment? And then next time, we either vote on this or we vote on an amendment to the master plan. But either way, I think we do need to decide on this like within the month, like in October, in November, like latest is November. But I think that could be an avenue forward, like determining where this best goes, but not whether we do it or not, I think we need to do it, but determining how it's best done. So that's what I would add to your comments is,
Mary Ann, you have not had a turn. Thank you, John. I thought you were done.
oh yeah, I'm done. I'm done.
Okay.
I've been sitting here this evening just thrilled that we were discussing this, because if you remember, in my last years, I couldn't get that far. And there were times when I knew that we were spending money that we shouldn't be spending because I couldn't get that far. We've come a long way. And some of that comes with having worked together with our administration now for a while. And some of it comes from just looking at the numbers, and they become more and more evident. I would be very disappointed if all we did was say, this is a bad problem and I want us to discuss it next time and make a decision. I would be disappointed with that, because this should not be a surprise to us. It's been presented many times in many different ways. And I'm concerned that every time we put it off, we spend more money. And it's money that we shouldn't be spending without being aware of what impact it will have on the agenda. So I would prefer us to decide it tonight. Now, I'm not making a motion yet, because I don't think that's where most of you are. But if we could decide it tonight, it would be better. If we cannot decide it tonight, we decide it in 2 weeks or else. And that's really the truth in terms of the way budgets work. You can put it off, but what you do when you put it off is you spend it.
Craig, and we'll come back. You'll be next.
Right? It was brought up, I forget who said it here, and I kind of agree with it. I don't like this idea of putting it off, because we can't be put off. Sooner or later, something has to happen. And, but there are different ways to implement what we want to do. Whether you do it one way or another way, I don't care. And if we make it a policy and someone wants us to do it, has a good reason and a good plan for us to do it, implement it in a slightly different way, you know, we can take that under advisement and do something about it. And this board has been open and willing to do that and make changes. But to sit here and put it off for 30 more days, it's like, I know I got to pay that bill, but darn it, it's inconvenient right now. Sometimes you just got to go, no, we can't afford to go out to dinner, honey, for the next 2 weeks in a row, because we've got to pay these bills first. You know, we've got to make a policy. This board does not have to implement the policy. We have somebody to do that. We have faculty, we have staff, we have faculty. We've got to make progress here, and it's got to be in writing. I would call for a vote, because I don't see a point in delaying. Maybe the vote's not going to be 100%, but I think we've got to do this. And if it needs to be revised later and the implementation, we don't have an adversarial thing going on here with staff and faculty and management. You know, we're all kind of shooting for that same end goal, and the goal is those students, and are we going to be around 10 years from now? So let's just take a look at it in the real world and call for a vote.
Peter? I'm sorry, David.
The question I would have for the faculty who spoke so eloquently is, would a two-week delay matter?
Our request was to put it in the educational master plan so that we work together on that language and approve it as an institution, and then that plan would come to the board. The board would approve a plan like the FICMAT asked a plan.
No, they asked for a board.
They didn't ask for a board policy, it doesn't say board policy anywhere in that language, it says a policy.
Can I make a comment, please?
Yes,
That'd be
David.
great. Thank you so much. Yeah, I just wanted to address your point. FCMAT does not say that we need a board policy. That's the first thing. The second thing, and this goes to the point of Kimberly, the students here, at least the students that I've spoken to, do not feel welcome. I personally don't feel welcome. I was an out-of-state student myself. The faculty, as far as I heard, do not feel included. The Student Senate doesn't feel included. So with that, I would respectfully ask that we delay the vote for 2 more weeks.
I think to that comment of FCMAT not asking, we can't do anything but set policy. So anything you get, the only action you can have is a policy. You're a policy-making body. So what you get reports, you get information, can't do anything. Can't tell you how to change your pedagogy to serve first-generation college students that are at risk, or best practices for remediate English instruction. I can have those conversations with the faculty at CSU Fullerton, where I graduated and had those, but I can't go into your classroom and tell you how to close the achievement gap in Santa Barbara. All I can do is set policy. So when I get a FCMAT report, that's the only voice.
Yeah, let me just read from FCMAT's statement. It says, enrollment efficiency and productivity must be a part of this, and they were referring to the broad, high-level policy on enrollment strategy. Policy is the word. Such a policy is critical in helping the college determine its optimal size and composition. As I said, we're electing to be a policy, to enact a policy at the highest level, not the mix. And I think their statement is very clear that it needs to be a policy. The Educational Master Plan took us a long time, and I assume that the amendments will come through perhaps a little more efficiently or quickly or whatever, having come together on the main plan. But the main plan, you know, in my reading of it, does not talk about anything like this at all. It talks about internal student and, you know, technology and facility kinds of issues, but there's nothing about efficiency. I think it would be a new concept for that plan to start talking about some of these other issues, and I think it's a great idea. But in the meantime, FCMAT is saying, do a policy board. And they said that back in February, or was it, when did we say they issued the report? November 3rd, 2016, they said we needed to do a policy. So we are not rushing here.
So are you, maybe this would help. If I understood Paul's comment a moment ago,
Let's slow down here, because I think it's very difficult to just add in comments from the audience. I appreciate you have valuable things to tell us, but let's go back to Peter's comment for now.
when I asked earlier, Paul, if you would have any objection to incorporating this into the strategic plan, you said that it really didn't make a great deal of difference one way or the other.
That was our goal all along.
Sure. So whatever we do tonight, it's going to be up for consideration and integration into the strategic plan.
Yeah, certainly, and I would also hope that the perception of the board isn't that we're not already doing something and we need this to begin to do something. Exactly. We're doing things, and I mean, we've been working really hard to address these issues, and hopefully we're doing them in a way that is inclusive of the campus community and trying to address some of these issues. So from my perspective, whether you approve the BP currently as written, you change it, you do it now or in 2 weeks. I'm still having the same conversations tomorrow with the faculty and the classified and everybody as I would have had anyhow. Because, I mean, I feel we have an imperative, and I think other people.
Sure.
And I think we're trying to embrace that, as a group and take that head on.
And should that group make a decision that takes exception would incorporate that information, those ideas, and supersede anything we put into a policy statement?
I'm not sure about that, but it would come to the board to have to approve whatever
Right,
drafts we
right.
would. And to the extent that it disagreed with your policy, if you approve one or the other, you might be changing a policy.
Sure.
Which is good.
And that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. So,
I have a question on efficiency. I'm looking at our enrollment update right now, and it says in 2017 we have 1,100 international students, and from what I heard, we have a BP that caps at 1,500. If we talk about efficiency, we need more students here. One of the reasons, actually the primary reason that I've heard for why we are in a deficit is because enrollment is down. That's all I've heard. Enrollment is down, enrollment is down. Well, if enrollment is down, I think we need to be more welcoming of students and not give off the impression that we don't want certain types of students here, particularly out of state and international. If the issue is enrollment is down, we need to bring enrollment up. I don't think having a policy that says optimal size, and some students have interpreted that as a cap, I don't think that that is welcoming, and I don't think that that will accomplish the goal.
David, I've heard from people at this table, that's not the case. That's simply not going to happen. There's nothing in this policy or in the strategic plan that would, in your words, make students feel uncomfortable. I would oppose anything that accomplishes that goal. I believe that international out-of-state students are extraordinarily valuable to the students who are being supported by this policy. Because if we don't have that mix of students, we have no business claiming that we accept the responsibility for creating globally aware students. We just don't. So I'm not worried about that. And I would hope that no student feels unwelcome here, and I would certainly commit myself to working in whatever direction is necessary to make sure that that didn't happen.
Hear, hear. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I ask one last question?
Of course.
So is the problem the 15,000 number or the problem of having it in the policy? Because let's say we don't do the policy, and would the faculty then just say, yeah, great, put 15,000 in the educational master plan? Because that seems like the number that, that's been determined. It's the average, that's what the data has told us is the number. So what is really going to change between having it in the educational master plan compared to this? Like I said, I'm open to going in that direction, but what is the tangible difference? What is the problem
To
with?
me, the difference is time, in part.
Well,
We
I
have
mean,
been,
not-
sitting on it for a long time.
No, I understand that
Yeah.
difference, but let's say the difference in 2019. This has passed, whatever has happened, the decision's been made, it's June 2019. Whether or not this 15,000 number is in the plan or in the board policies, what is the actual difference on a day-to-day basis here? Is there an actual difference?
Jonathan, the difference is that we're a policymaking board. The rest of it is administration and the rest of the members but what we do here on this board is we're the ones that write that vote on the policies or ask for the policies. The policies are a profound written statement that give directions to the institution. And if we fail to do that, then we're not doing our jobs. Now, we went through the process to develop these policies, and not all of us every time agree 100% with any of the policies necessarily. Sometimes and frequently we have all voted unanimously. That doesn't mean we all feel identically enthusiastic about them, but we need to do our jobs. And by failing to do our jobs, whether it's now or in 2 weeks, certainly waiting months more and repeating this whole process when we need to take action, I don't want to be an ogre, I don't want to be the authoritarian, and I certainly don't want to carry around with the impression that I'm carrying around a hatchet and chopping things. What we need to do is grow the institution, get everybody working on the same page, and to do that, we have to have some policies, there has to be directions, and we have people that are highly educated, highly responsible and experienced on all sides of the issues here, and we have a track record of being able to work together. So let's just get on with the show and have some confidence in each other, because nobody's looking to do anybody any harm or kill anything around here. All we wanted to do is get better. But to do that, our responsibility and what we can do as this board is we can vote for a policy. That's what the board does. And if you don't like it, it's okay not to like it, and it's okay to say, we don't like this about it, and could you try to look at doing it a different way? Yes, we'll listen. And we might even do it a different way if someone asks us, but we can't not do anything. It's like, it's not, if we do nothing, if we put this off, we're doing nothing when we could be doing something. And people vote for us, they expect us to do something. We need to do this. Can we change it? Can we fix it? Can we amend things? Sure. But we have to initiate and do something.
Well, that's a good point, Craig. I mean, all of these board policies are subject to amendment. We just did the process for doing that. The other thing I would just mention is baked into this discussion of that number, or baked into that number and the many discussions that have been had, are a lot of factors, like the size of the campus, the facilities we have, the resources we have to teach students, the community, the transportation, the general need to live comfortably and sustainably within our community. And I don't know, maybe there will be a need for another college or another center at some point down the road, but here on this hill, we have a constrained amount of space. And it made sense, I think, after all of those discussions, to recognize that and not be splitting our seams, which is really what was happening in 2009. I mean, it was painful, as I recall. I saw students trying to crash classes, filling the hallways, and we just couldn't do it. And we need to know that and be honest about it. So I think it's time to vote on this one. We have a motion and I'm a little torn, obviously, but if you can keep it briefly, that's helpful.
So I did hear you quoting from the Academic Senate minutes, but I want to make very clear that these minutes are a little bit they are not, I see the way they are written, they are not reflecting what was discussed. On that meeting on August 30th, the only policy we discussed was BP 1300. So the only time faculty had to have any input on BP 3150 was in the last 5 minutes of the September 27th meeting. And I understand that might have been our fault that our Academic Senate President honors the schedules of our faculty members, says if the meeting is scheduled until 5, then we have to break at 5. The only thing I'm asking today, and which I asked before, is a little bit more time to give faculty the opportunity to have educated input on that. The PNR committee has invited Dr. Jarrell to talk about the PNR committee because not every committee member actually understands really well what a wish to FTEF actually means. I don't think that this, and I think this reflects the majority of faculty, that this is a measure which takes time to understand. And you know me. I'm for efficiency, and I'm for a balanced budget. This is why I'm here. This is what the Faculty Association does, right? I support you in this. I'm only asking for giving the faculty a chance to have some input and some discussion on that within the next few days, weeks, and possibly vote on this in 1 or 2 meetings later. Thank you.
Okay, we keep prolonging ourselves by doing this, so I think we should get to an end.
I
One
just
more.
want to say something really quick. If we do vote right now, I'm going to vote yes, but can we do a quick, like, up or down straw poll if we're down to
No,
do?
that's not
Then
okay.
can I make a
can't do
motion
that.
to delay this motion until next meeting? Could do that. I just want to see what the temperature is after hearing Cornelia.
I think we have to take the vote. We
But
have a motion.
My motion
on-
is to amend the current motion to delay until 2 weeks from now. And
Second.
I'd like to see
And-
how it goes.
No, wait, Veronica has to accept it,
No.
so that's,
No.
No, if someone else seconds it,
I
it
second.
becomes a motion.
I second Jonathan's motion.
Like I said, I'm voting yes, but I
No.
just want to
she
try
has to
this.
accept an amendment to her motion.
That's not true.
What do you want to do, Jonathan?
I'm motioning to tabling her motion until next meeting.
You want to see,
Just like Craig voted to, a motion to table my motion a couple meetings back
you want to see,
indefinitely.
you want to see,
I'm motioning to table Veronica's for the next meeting.
you
and
want to
I'm-
see who wants to table.
Yes, I'd like to see who would be down to table it. We can't do a straw up or down, so I'd like to just do this motion to see. After we heard, like Cornelia, I trust her. I just heard her speak that they will do their due diligence between now and next Thursday. And if they don't, we're going to vote yes on this anyways. 2 weeks, I'm down to try 2 weeks. So I would like to vote on this one. If it makes the decision stronger, I think it's in our interest.
So there's a motion
To delay it.
to amend the motion on the floor.
No.
And it's been seconded, I think.
But
So we now discuss the amendment.
The delay, yes.
Yeah.
All right, we'll
Let me-
discuss.
And then we vote yes or no, do we delay it or not?
Do we delay it or not? And you're saying 2 weeks. I mean, to me, I have to say, this is a statewide number. What are you going to say about it?
Marcia, I'm telling you
The
that
point
I'm
is to
voting
understand it,
yes.
fine,
I'm
but.
telling you I would vote yes today, but I think
He just wants to
that
see if we
I
want
want,
to
because
postpone. it.
after hearing her say that, I trust them to figure it out between now and the next 2 weeks. And if they figure it out and we get to decide it in 2 weeks, nothing operationally really changes, because like Paul said, we're already doing all this. But if it makes the vote on this stronger, I want us to have a better vote. So that's my priority. I agree with this. I'm going to vote yes on this. But if 2 weeks helps, then 2 weeks is what I'm going to ask for.
Except that when I asked that same question a little while ago, the idea was not acceptable.
Well, but that was there, and that's Cornelia, and she's the
We had
president of
already- yeah, we
the
had
FA.
already
So
discussed
I'm listening to the president of the FA.
May I make a comment? Just on what Jonathan said. I think it would be very courteous to the students as well. We only had one chance to really make a comment on this, and that chance was about 5 minutes. So I think it would be, the faculty, of course, I really appreciate all the work you guys do, but also the students whom we're making this decision about. I think it would be very important and courteous.
I certainly hope that we get a more streamlined system, because we have a committee, a student is on the committee, it's BPAP, and BPAP is supposed to give us the comments, and that's what we've been working off of. So it's, it's sort of like, everybody comes out of the wall and says, well, I needed more time, I didn't know about it, I didn't hear about it, it was a year ago, but I didn't know about it. That is kind of a little frustrating. And I'm just
I am equally
getting tired.
frustrated. I am equally frustrated, and that's why I'm saying I will give a last 2 weeks, and then we should vote in 2 weeks. Or we'll vote now, but I just want
All
to try
right,
this.
we will have a vote on the amended, motion to delay 2 weeks. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Uh-oh, we're going to have to go around the room.
Shouldn't we have Angie talk?
Yeah,
follow?
Angie, go around the room.
Really?
Okay, trustee Croninger?
No.
Oh, sorry. Trustee Kugler?
No.
Trustee Gallardo?
No.
Trustee Hasland?
No.
Trustee Abode?
Yes.
Trustee Bloom?
Yes.
Trustee Nielsen?
No.
Student Trustee Pambechi?
Yes.
The noes have it.
So that's no.
Now
So
we're
now
ready
we
to
go to the vote on the policy.
Yeah, I just, from my point of view, I think we're skipping somehow a buy-in, and I know this can be discussed forever and ever and ever, and we know that. But somehow we don't have a buy-in, and I don't mean on the actual number, because after a buy-in, you figure it out. But somehow, there's a huge wall here. And I'm trying to figure out why. I mean, I think everybody on the faculty, everybody on the staff and so on, everybody believes that we're having a problem. I think we all acknowledge the problem. I think we also know that there's deficit spending. We can't keep going on and doing that. But that doesn't mean that they're buying in on the idea that this is the optimal size or the optimal efficiency and so on. I'm not arguing what it actually is, because we've had a lot of meetings on it, but that doesn't mean they have. I'm not getting the sense that anybody
Well, I think,
really has has made that decision, and if they want to put it into the education master plan, I don't see why that wouldn't be okay. So I guess I'm having a little bit of a problem myself, because I really think when we make a decision up here, it should be bought in by everybody.
well, two things. One is, we don't all necessarily agree, and sometimes that's what makes a decision hard. The
I don't
other
have a
is
problem.
that I think that CPC reviewed this and approved it and voted on it, is my recollection. And that was quite a long time ago.
I think why
We're
I'm
not
okay-
talking about it as a BP, we're talking about it as the concept of 15,000.
Marcia, I think why, or Marty, I think why I'm okay with this, I think is what Peter clarified, that these conversations are happening, they've been happening. Once this goes into effect, the conversations will continue to happen, and this policy may even get better, and at that point, Dr. Jarrell will come back to us, and then we'll say, okay. And so I think that this is like, it's a start. And I think Peter clarified that, which is why I'm okay. He said, Dr. Jarrell, when you have these conversations, if you feel like it comes up different in the Education Master Plan or wherever other plan, will you come back to us? Yes. Okay, good. And so I think that that's the reciprocal, I guess, relationship that I feel we have, where we can trust that if I'm not comfortable voting on something, but you guys say, no, don't worry, Veronica, like, we're watching this, and say, okay, good, then I'm going to give you a vote of confidence. And I feel like we've done that a lot.
Okay, but what you're saying is that we can have that buy-in, all of us have that buy-in. I don't question that. And Dr. Jarrell's doing a great job with it, and Dr. Beebe too. So it's not the buy-in up here, it's somehow the buy-in.
No, yeah,
of the
that's what I'm
staff
talking
and so
about,
on.
that buy-in, that I think that when they if they feel like this is not somehow the right target, that they will come back to us, and at that point, we can change it. But
Right.
but to do nothing would sort of not get that message going, that this is something we really want to get the ball rolling on.
So now what you're doing is, the onus is just going to Dr. Beebe now.
Yeah, I'd like to make a
If we
comment
put
on
this
something.
policy on, then the
No,
onus
no,
is
no.
on you to get.
I think some of the
achieve
tension
buy-in.
that we're hearing has to do with the idea that somehow, it's not the 15,000 FTES, and it's not the 525 so much, it's not those numbers. The tension I think that we're hearing has to do with having numbers in a board policy like this in the first place. I mean, at least that's my understanding. And I think that's where it's different. I don't know if we've necessarily had, cardinal numbers in board policies like this in the past. And I think that may be part of the tension of what we're hearing here.
But
I would
we're
agree.
talking about these as so fundamental, a statewide, generally accepted average,
No, I understand.
in concept. I mean, this end concept, I'm having trouble
goal.
understanding. Yeah, as a goal, which leaves all kinds of operational work to be done. It just seems to me very fundamental to the board's role to say, there's your goal, figure it out.
Well, with no numbers in the goal, even
Yeah.
if they're
Well,
wrong numbers, you still have to have some figures to shoot for, some numbers to plan towards, something to work towards that's definite, that's concrete, instead of just an ideal. If you don't do that, you're not aiming precisely enough. And we all know, I know because I'm an old guy now, that you tend to hit what you aim for. And so we need to do it as accurately as we can, and it's probably going to be off, but the further off it is, the worse it is. So we've got a number in there, and if somebody comes up with better numbers, that's fine. I'm all ears.
We very likely could.
Yeah, if I could just elaborate a little bit on the process that led us to the numbers. The 15,000 is the only one that's the ideal size of the college, optimal size of the college. That's the conversation that we had throughout last year. The
Been
idea.
a long time.
I'm sorry,
It's been a long time. We've
Yeah,
been
but
talking about that number for quite a while.
yeah, part of that conversation, we didn't mention efficiency, that we weren't talking targets or numbers in terms of efficiency at that point. There were subsequent conversations that we've had when we realized, that we do have a declining efficiency, and one of the things that we're going to have as a goal when we manage toward 15,000, 15,500, whatever the number may be, is that we want to do that in the most efficient way possible. So those two values were never linked together in a conversation before until we saw them in the board policy.
But you were having those discussions, I think you said, from fall on of last year.
In the fall with regard to the optimal size of the college, and then in the spring with efficiencies, we started having conversations.
Yeah. So, all right, I think we need to vote. We still have another one to talk about, and we're going to be tired. So, and I'm not letting you out of here.
Back to the thread, huh?
Back to the threat, yeah. So, stretch, and we're going to vote. Angie, I think you probably need to call it.
All right. Can you tell us what the motion is?
The motion is to approve the policy as written.
What policy? Which one?
3150.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, trustee Nielsen,
Yes.
trustee Bloom,
No.
trustee Abud,
Yes.
trustee Hasland,
Yes.
trustee Gallardo,
Yes?
trustee Kugler,
Yes.
trustee Croninger,
Yes.
student trustee Bambechi.
No.
Okay, so we have a policy. Let me reiterate what Peter said, which is we're open to amendments. We have a process. People want to bring that forward, we can. And same goes for the next one, which we're going to take up, which is 1300, excuse me. So procedurally, we have done the steps. Let me dispense with the date stuff because that may take a while, but we've done the steps. It's been out there. It's been a couple of rounds of comments from BPAP. We can go through what their comments are, or you can pick up on a shorter time frame. Your choice.
Can I move passage?
You
Just
can.
Get the motion going.
All right,
Second?
second. We've got the comments in front of us. Anyone have any questions about the comments?
Yeah, because this BP is so radically different from the one that we've seen. Actually, the first time I saw this board policy was when the agenda came out at 3:55 on Monday. So I'd like to move and make an amendment to the motion to vote in 2 weeks.
Okay, I'm not hearing a second.
Did you finish your
there.
sentence? Or
Yeah, I didn't understand
missed-
what you
That was,
meant.
I made a motion to amend, delay the vote for 2 weeks.
And this one also.
Okay, why don't I go through with what those changes are? There was initial concern, sorry, I think I'm not on the mic there. There's initial concern about the statements of context in the beginning. So the change in the first paragraph basically takes context right from the catalog, the SBCC catalog. This is what we say about the college in our catalog to our students, to our community. We thought that that would be a simplification. It is also pretty much the same language in our self-study accreditation report. Again, the idea is non-controversial. We already said this stuff. There was concern and a perception, and clearly we've been talking about this perceptual thing, and clearly from some of our comments, there are perception concerns. And I feel bad about that because everybody has their own perception about what's going on, but clearly in thinking about this policy and the discussions we've had and the congruence with the board goals for supporting community focus, something we have in our board goals, it just surprises me that people would feel like it was a criticism, and it surprises me that people would feel like it wasn't an effort to say, yes, we're already doing this, and we want to do it more. We want to continuously approve, in the words of the Accreditation Commission. We want to get better every day at doing this. And so in responding, we said the board supports the success of all our students to try to get at that question of, did somebody feel left out? No, nobody should feel left out. We've said that multiple times in multiple ways. But community colleges, and there is a legal opinion here attached, are very much an institution that looks to their community. And our lens as trustees is, in many ways, to represent the community. So that thought process is in paragraph 2, and I think that's reflected in the trustee handbook, which says, among other things, a question that should guide all policy decisions is how will this improve the effectiveness of the college in serving its community? That's what the league has said we should be thinking about. Another question that came up here was, well, what do you want us to do? And so the third paragraph talks about that we will outreach, and we think that there are students out there, students who may have left but might like to come back, students who haven't realized that college is an option for them, students who are local but not in our Promise program because it didn't exist then. Mainly, and in many ways, economically disadvantaged students. And yes, we are doing wonderful things there. And yes, we want to do more. I mean, that's the point here. We want to work with our community in developing workforce skills that get our students good jobs. Try to raise our families who have been stuck in lower level jobs, try to raise those people up to a better job. Positive relationship with the foundation, local institutions, K-12s, nonprofits, local four-year institutions. Those are things we already do, and those are things we can do better. Every time we think about it, we can get better. So I'm having a hard time understanding why it's seen as a bad thing or a negative thing or a difficult thing, because I feel like we're already doing it, we're doing a great job, and we're saying, great, let's keep improving it. And it's bothering me in the sense that I'm almost feeling like the mode of discourse that the country, the entire country is adopting is what we're hearing out of Washington. You know, people are moving into little groups and worrying about what's theirs and not thinking about what's good for the public as a whole. You know, what's my tribe think? And say, of course we support our community, of course we support all our students, and saying that this is important to us is not a bad thing. There you go. Next.
Next, what?
Comments. We have a motion.
Well, there was some concern about the distinction between committed and recommitted, and if that's a distinction that matters to people, I have no objection to changing that word in paragraph 3 from the board is recommitted to the board is committed.
We did change it to reconfirms, so that was an effort to, actually, the
Oh,
one on
am
the...
I reading the...
Yeah, you're reading the one that was commented on, and
Oh,
we
I
said,
see.
okay, how about reconfirms, you know?
Okay.
We're not, we're trying to move away from that concern.
All right, let me see what, yeah, I got it. And it seems to me that, and maybe this is already taken care of, looks like it is. Yeah, I think the next paragraph takes care of my concern or my potential objection. The notion of special consideration means different things to different people. And since we are already giving special consideration through the college program, or Promise program, I think that is well advised to be deleted. And it looks
Yeah,
like it has been
We
deleted.
did keep the priority registration, that's specifically authorized by Title V. We have other priority registrations. We have priority registration already in for athletes, and this is no different in process and authority, other than, you know, the different composition of the students.
Well, except it's a larger component than, say, athletes, wouldn't you say?
Not a lot larger, actually. I mean, it might be, I think we have about 400 athletes, and the Promise is around 850, and then there's 2 years' worth, yeah. So it'll be a bigger group.
Two.
But really what it says is, you know, you're in this larger, much larger group, and you will get a first chance to register. And given that our Promise programs require students to go 2 years to
Yeah.
keep that money, it seems eminently reasonable that we should share that
Sure, got it.
concern. Mary Ann?
When I was reading this, I knew that there would be questions, and so I read it asking myself, who does it leave out? And the answer is, it doesn't leave out anybody. For example, clearly, this does not say we do not accept students from other countries. It doesn't say that. And in fact, if we care about our students, one could make a very good case that accepting students from other countries is part of their education. It doesn't say we don't take people that live 5 miles from here or 50. It isn't who is left out. It is who we are responsible for and how we decide who comes. And what it says is we accept people who need what we have to offer and who will be an asset to our college family. I mean, that's what it says, essentially. And I don't see how you can ask to be more specific than that. So I'm really happy with after I thought about it a long time, I'm really happy with it. I think it's the closest that we can come at this stage to what we've been saying when we have these discussions.
Do we have a motion on the floor?
We do. So, I would just add to it that in our board goals and here, I think that one of the things that I care most about is the commitment to help the underserved, the folks in our community who live here, have to live here, work, juggle family and all those commitments. You only reach the poorest folks in your community because they're not traveling around. They don't, as said in the opinion, they don't have that time, or they don't have the money to travel around. They're here, and we'd like to help them. So I feel good about that. And we are helping them. I'm not trying to suggest it's not happening. It is happening. But giving it that, its important statement, I think matters. So, shall we vote?
Let's vote.
All right. Angie, we'll go to you again.
Okay. Trustee Kugler,
Aye.
Trustee Croninger,
Aye.
Trustee Hasland,
Aye.
Trustee Gallardo,
Aye.
Trustee Bloom,
Aye.
Trustee Abud,
Aye.
Trustee Nielsen, Student Trustee Pambechi.
Aye.
Okay. That takes us to the end, and before we get there, I just wanted to remind everybody, we've been talking about a lot of things that matter to us here at the college. We have a sister college in Santa Rosa, which I believe has been closed due to the fires in Northern California. And those fires are truly horrendous. And we have people who have died in them. We have incredible property and business damage. We have Sonoma, Yuba, Mendocino, Napa, Nevada counties, all of them with fires. And I would hope maybe all of our governance groups could think about something we might do, and the board included, to reach out to those folks who are having a really hard time. And I would add to that, we have had 3 hurricanes. Puerto Rico is perhaps the one that may feel most left out. I don't know, but they seem to have, 85% of the people don't have electricity. They have all kinds of problems with medical care. So again, if the college would like to reach out, I think this is a thing we could do together and would be good for everyone to reach out and think about what's happening for those people. So would adjourn in honor of all of those people who are having a very hard time. Thank you.